This is a Holga 120N. It is a camera that was released out of Hong Kong in the early 80s for the everyday working man. It's all plastic and it shoots medium format film. That's crazy. What I love about this camera so much is the fact that it does not offer any crutches. This is a tool, and you have to figure out how to use this tool without having anything to lean on. Even though it is entirely plastic, it's a really beautiful camera. The aperture on this camera is probably different than anything that you've seen. It's different than most of the things that I have seen. The way you change the aperture is this little switch right here. If you look at the very center of the lens, you'll see it switch when I move the dial. You have the option of f11 or f8. Now, the aperture is one of the things that makes the Holga so unique because the aperture that is sliding into place is also something that creates vignetting on your image. So if you leave the aperture diaphragm slightly to one side rather than in the middle, you're going to have vignetting on your image that reflects the position of that diaphragm when you take your picture. You are able to double expose with the Holga very easily because when you take an image, this dial on the top is how you wind the film to the next frame. If you do not wind it, then it just stays on that frame and you can take another image and superimpose it on top of the image that you just took. Now, because this is a medium format camera, you're going to get a larger negative with the film that you shoot. But you do have two options with what size frame you want to shoot when you're using a Holga. You can shoot a 6x6 frame or you can shoot a 6x4.5 frame. If you shoot the 6x6 frame, you get 12 images per roll of film. And if you shoot a 6x4.5, you get 16 images per roll of film. And it is incredibly easy to change the frame size. There are plastic masks that pop out of the inside of the camera, and then you pop the other one in and it's done. This is the film mask that I was referring to earlier. You can see in the top corner, it does have that number 12. That indicates that this is a 6x6 mask and your images will come out in a 6x6 frame. You simply pull up on the mask to remove it. And to put the other one in, as you can see, this one does have the number 16 in this top corner. Slide it into place and pop it down. It's very, very simple. The indicator on the back of the camera is also to let you know which one you are shooting. The camera comes with a 60mm fixed lens, meaning that you can't really take it off. It's not intended to come off. I know that there are people who makeshift things where they take the Holga lens off and they put it on their cameras. I'm not sure how to do that, and I don't think that it's intended for that to be done. The next thing I want to talk about is the way you focus this camera. I'm not entirely sure how you focus the camera, if I'm being quite honest. The focus ring on the outside tells you this single individual is where your focus ring should be if you're about 3 feet away. If you're 6 feet away, it should be here. With a group of people, it is 18 feet, and landscape is 30 and beyond to infinity. When you're looking through the viewfinder, nothing really changes when you adjust the focus ring. So it is worth noting that most of the subject in your image is going to be in focus towards the center of the frame, and towards the edge of the frame, it's going to be a lot more out of focus. Keep that in mind with whatever it is you're taking a picture of. I'm not sure that the Holga is the camera that you're going to nail the focus on every time. It's more so something that you have with you to take so that you can capture moments. They're probably going to be kind of out of focus and maybe a little blurry. And if you're shooting color with the Holga, it does something weird to the colors that I've not seen another camera do. A lot of the things about this camera are interesting. The way that it was built, the fact that it's completely plastic, what it does to color film, it's all very interesting. The next thing we need to talk about is the shutter speed. It is a fixed shutter speed. You can't change it. It's roughly 1/100th of a second. That's what the manual for mine said. I'm not really sure that's accurate, so proceed with caution. You take a picture by this little lever right here. Rather than having something on the top of the camera that you press down, and the shutter opens and closes when you press that button. You can hold this lever down and the shutter stays open. The biggest downside to this camera is the back of the camera is held in place by these metal clasps, and they are notorious for breaking. Directly behind the back of the camera is your film. So if these break or they fall off or something happens, you no longer have the pressure of the clasps holding the back on to the camera, and it causes light leaks. Even though these ones are not broken, it would be smart for me to have a gaff tape or painter's tape or duct tape or some kind of blackout tape on the edges so that it keeps these little cracks from leaking light, which is likely happening as we speak, because this is something that this camera is notorious for. And you just peel it back when you're ready to take the back off and then put it back on, and you can change it out as needed, obviously. Regardless of whether or not the camera is new, you want to try and keep the light from getting to the film, and having tape on there is a good idea, which I have not done, but you should do that. It's gonna save you. If you wanted to put a camera strap on this camera, the metal clasps are where you would do that. You would put it here, but know that if you do put a camera strap on this, it's probably gonna pull the clasps up and the back's gonna pop off. So I have not done that because I know that it's notorious for doing that. So I'm not even gonna mess with it. This is super light. I think it doesn't even weigh half a pound. It's not heavy. Holding it is not something that is gonna be a huge burden. This camera is only $40 on Amazon right now, and the one that I got does come with Ilford HP5. This is a film that I shoot on very regularly. It's one of my favorite films, and essentially I think that means that the camera is about $30 because this film is almost $10 a roll. So you're getting a camera and you're getting film for 40 bucks on Amazon. That's a steal. I'll make sure I do link that down below so that you have access to it. Here are some of the photos that I captured with the Holga. I went ahead and shot both black and white and color so that you could see what it looks like when the Holga does both. I think they're really beautiful. I hope you enjoy. Overall, I really loved the Holga. Shooting with it was really fun. Being able to double expose was something that I hadn't done before, and I thoroughly enjoyed that process. I'll be taking this camera with me on all of my trips now because it's super light and it's fun to shoot because it feels a bit like the pressure has been taken off because it's not a super expensive camera. I don't know how to explain that. That's just how I feel when I shoot it. And I also really loved the colors that came out when I shot on Portra 400. This camera is so much fun, and if you're looking to get into medium format, this might be the perfect place for you to start. I'm pretty happy with how they came out. Not everything is in focus, but this is a $40 camera. It's okay if it's not in focus every time because it's meant to be something that you take to have fun with. It's not meant to have super crisp images all of the time. If you want to try medium format, it's super fun. You send it to your lab just like you do other film, and this is how you take it out of the camera. To rewind your film onto the spool that's going to be sent to the lab, you just turn this dial on the top all the way until you no longer see your film in this little red window in the back. Once that's done, you can go ahead and pop down your clasps on either side and carefully open up the back. Your film spool will be on the opposite side that you put it in on. So when you load a roll of film, it's gonna be on your left side, and when you are done shooting your film, it's going to be on the right side. To get the film out of the camera, you're going to wanna maintain pressure on the film as soon as you take the back off to make sure that no light is leaking in underneath the edges of the film. You can take this tab and you can slightly pull it up so that the edge of the spool lifts. And I've had to do this before with other cameras. It seems that I'm gonna have to do it with this camera as well. Or you can take your finger and try and pop the spool up from the bottom. If you can get enough grip on there, sometimes you're able to do it, but I'm trying to keep pressure on this, so I'm not able to do that here. You see I just lightly pull up. I still have my other finger on it, and then I'm going to pinch the film after I pull it out of the camera. It's pretty tightly wound too. I'm a little bit surprised by that. I wasn't sure how it was gonna look when I pulled it out of the camera. But what you'll do is you will fold this film just under the word exposed, and I'm still pinching while I'm doing this. Fold that tab underneath, and if you notice that you're starting to lose a little bit of tension, you can just rotate this spool in the opposite direction and kind of twist it back into place. And then you're going to push down and crease the edge of your film paper, and then you will lick the back side of this paper because it's sticky, and then you will seal it on top of itself. And try and keep as much tension on that as possible, but be careful because they do rip. Just like this, and you're ready to go. It's also a good idea to keep small hair tie rubber bands in case that paper does rip, you have something to hold it closed. To load more film into the Holga, you're going to take the spool that's been left over from the previous roll of film, and you're gonna move it to the other side. A new roll of film is going to have this paper tab on it, and it's also going to have the white barcode on the outside. That's how you know it's not a roll of film that's been shot, but rather it's a new roll of film. Remove your paper tab and do your best to keep pressure on this film as you're taking the paper off, and remove as much excess paper as possible while you're doing this because it can catch and cause the spool to have a difficult time taking up the film. That should be good. You'll take your tab, keep pinching, you'll take your tab out, you will load this end into the opposite side, and you will stretch this across while keeping pressure on this side while it's being loaded. Okay, my hand is on this still. I'm going to insert this tab into that slot all the way to the fold so that it catches really well. You're going to try and get this down as far as possible, and then you're going to start to rotate the back of the film. If it doesn't catch, like this one is not, that means that the tab is not far enough into that slot and you need to try again. Do not take your hand off of the other side until you have tension on the back of the film because it will cause light leaks. So you can hear now I do have that tension on the back of the film. I can go ahead and remove this hand. And keep in mind that this is not down all the way, so there's not a ton of tension pushing on this. Be careful when you're rotating the take-up spool to make sure that it doesn't pop out. I'm just gonna keep my finger on here lightly because the back is what's going to allow the film to sit flat when we close the back side. I'm gonna rotate this take-up spool until this arrow is in the middle of the camera because that's roughly where it should be, and then I'm going to put the back on. You go ahead and lock your clasps back in place. I am on 16 now, so I'm gonna go ahead and change this. And from here, you will rotate your take-up reel until you see the number 1 in that red window. That's how you change the film. That's it for today's video. If you want a camera that you can pretty much take anywhere, I'll make sure I have the link down below so you have access to it, as well as all of the gear that we've used in today's video. Let me know what you'd like to see next, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Tilly Scholl, and I'll catch you on the next one.